As I said last week, this week we're doing Poor Things. A movie that recently won an Oscar. Actually, it won several Oscars. Makes me feel like I should do more to celebrate this movie, which is overly long in my opinion. So hopefully I remember it. Now, I'm not going to get into the little synopsis on what's it about, because then I'll ruin some of the surprises. We start out with a woman jumping off a bridge. And then we go to a woman, played by Emma Stone, banging on a piano. And Willem Dafoe, all scarred up, walking on her and getting a hug. Emma Stone, banging on a kitchen table and spitting out food. Willem Dafoe on that table with a bunch of stuff connected to his stomach, burping out a bubble and eating food. We later find out Emma Stone's name is Bella and Willem Dafoe's name is God. Now, if that isn't a little bit of a metaphor, then I don't know what is. It's a blatant metaphor. Especially since when Willem Dafoe's leaving, we see Emma Stone run after him going, "Bah, bah, bah," and a duck dog following her. Willem Dafoe is a brilliant surgeon, we find out, who is teaching at this college, which is where we meet Max, who Willem Dafoe hires for a job to document Bella, who is apparently a retard, every movement. So we find out how she's making any gains. Max has to do this. I'm not sure who plays Max because I've seen the actor in things, but I don't know his name. Mark Ruffalo comes in later. So Max starts documenting Bella. And we find some things out about Bella. She's learning 15 new words a day. Her head is gaining in size. Pretty soon that will be the size of London. And we'll have to keep it up with stilts. Joking about that. But when Willem Dafoe cuts, when God cuts in the lab, Bella cuts in the lab, cutting people's eyes out of dead bodies. How they know what kills the person if it's not being stabbed in the eye. In case they get stabbed in the eye, who knows? So God puts Bella to bed one night, telling her a bedtime story. And Bella asks God if God's her parents. In which case, God tells Bella that Bella is an orphan and her parents died in an avalanche in South America. And God just taking care of her. That makes Bella sad. And then Bella demands to go outside one day, and God does. Until people show up, in which case God immediately tells Bella and them they have to leave. At which point Bella sees ice cream and wants ice cream, and God chloroforms her after she throws a fit. At which point we see the first of Emma Stone's nudity. Don't worry, there's lots of nudity to come, because this is Poor Things, and Poor Things has a lot of nudity in it. Now, this beginning is in black and white. I think I'm dying of lung cancer. Its beginning is in black and white. It does go into color later on. Max, at one point, looks up why Bella is like the way Bella is, and God reveals to Max that he found Bella at the bottom of London Bridge, half dead. Well, not half dead, she was most of the way dead. Pregnant with a baby who was still alive. He didn't know who she was, didn't know anything about her, and he could have brought her back to life then. But instead, he put the baby's brain into Bella's body and made her an experiment. At which point we see, and at God's house, we see a lot of animals that are mixed with other animals. Creating Bella, who is the brain of an infant in the body of a woman and likes to masturbate. At which point God asked Max if he would like to marry Bella. Max admits he has feelings and asks Bella to marry him. God says there's one condition, which point Max states that it has to be Bella's wish, and then God states there's two conditions, that and Max must always live there with him. At which point Mark Ruffalo comes in to drop the contract as Duncan somebody, a lawyer, who must meet Bella and excuses himself, saying he has to pee in order to go find Bella and flirts with her. And that night he climbs the house, go flirt with Bella, and invites her to take him to Lisbon. Invites her to go to Lisbon with him. At which point Bella says yes, tells God the next day that she is running away to Lisbon with him. God says he will stop her. Bella says if God doesn't give her his blessing, I cannot speak tonight at all. That she will forever hate God. So God gives her his blessing. Max comes in, refusing to let her go, at which point Bella chloroforms him. God stitches some money in a dress for her, and the movie takes over in color, as Bella is seen eating oysters and drinking champagne, and Max and God are seen drinking heavily. Then we go to Lisbon, where Bella has more adventures, this time with more sex with Mark Ruffalo. We see Emma Stone naked, but we never see Mark Ruffalo's penis. I have a theory on this, and that is that Mark Ruffalo was ashamed to show his penis because it is so tiny. My theory is Mark Ruffalo's penis is approximately 0.2 inches long, and therefore he refused to show it because it would not actually get inside Emma Stone. But there's even more sex between Mark Ruffalo and Emma Stone. At which point, when Mark Ruffalo goes to sleep, Duncan goes to sleep, Emma Stone takes off into the city to see people fighting, hear a song, eat food, throw up, and then make it back just in time to go to sleep. And then they have dinner out, at which point Emma Stone embarrasses Duncan and tries to beat up a baby. I am not joking about that. She tries to beat up a baby. And damn, my brain's going blank. And then she goes out again that night and gets drunk. It's a clear bottle of liquor. So it could either be vodka or tequila. They're in Lisbon, so I'm going with tequila, but could still be vodka. Not exactly sure. We go back to the boys, and God passes out giving an anatomy lecture, revealing that he's been drinking too much. So they decide to restart the experiment with another girl, putting another infant's brain in her. And we see them throwing a ball at this girl and hitting her in the face and her crying. Which, I mean, throwing a ball at a woman and hitting her in the face and making her cry is not that funny. Now, if they would have thrown a ball at a little child and hit him in the face and made him cry, that would have been hilarious. Because children need to cry. Because we need to make children cry. Bella is shown going on more adventures. This time, she reveals that a guy felt her inner thighs because they were so soft, and Bella let him go down on her. At which point Mark Ruffalo goes back to drinking and refuses to also go down on her. The next morning he reveals he bought her a trunk and has her get in the trunk, and now they're on a boat. At which point Bella is not happy at all. She wanted to stay in Lisbon. Bella wanders around the boat, still unhappy, before she eventually makes friends with an old woman, whose name I can't remember, and a black guy whose also name I can't remember, who's a cynic. And they talk for some time, pissing off Duncan. Now Bella starts reading on this boat, and I'm estimating at this time she goes from being a little kid in mind to being about a teenager, because she's reading philosophy. So she's about teenager in mind's age on this boat. Now Duncan on this boat is drinking heavily and gambling heavily. And at one point, Bella says she's going to meet the old lady for talks and tea, and Duncan threatens to throw the old lady overboard, and even starts to, before being taken away by the guards and thrown back in the room. The black guy shows Bella what life is really like in the slums of Alexandria by not going to the slums, but looking down on them. Bella then takes Duncan's winnings from gambling and gives them to two workers from the ship who say they're getting off here, and tells them to give them to the people in the slums, which you know they're not giving them to people in the slums, they're keeping them themselves. But Bella doesn't know this. Duncan, furious, thinking he's robbed, calls the steward, at which point Bella admits that she gave the money away. Captain then comes in and says that since they don't have the money to pay their bill, they're on cruise rations and are getting dropped off in Marseille, which, for those of you who don't know, Marseille is in Paris. And for those of my European friends who watch this show, you guys know where everything is at in Europe, and I know where nothing is at in Europe. So who knows? So then we go to Paris. How they got from Marseille to Paris without any money, I don't know. That's never explained in this overly long movie, though everything else is gone into long, complicated explanations. Duncan and Bella are broke in Paris. And Duncan is being an ass. Bella goes up to somebody who she thinks is running a hotel, and the lady tells her, I'll rent your room for an hour for 10 francs, and you charge 30 francs, and then you make 20 francs. And then a man walks up, she says something to him in French, points to Bella, and the man seems to agree. And then she says to Bella, you want to be a concubine? And Bella agrees. And Bella goes to room 16 and has sex. Bella then buys some food for her and Duncan, explaining to Duncan what she just did. Duncan freaks out, and Bella says they're through, and Bella gives Duncan the money. that God gave her, and Duncan takes off, supposedly to go back to London. Bella, needing money and work now, goes back to the lady who runs the hotel and gets a job, and this is where we see a lot of nudity. A lot of nudity during this time. Duncan, though, did not go back to London, continues to stalk Bella and tell Bella that he wants to marry her, and gets infuriated at Bella's whoring. Bella, though, between her whoring, goes to anatomy lessons and reads books. Meanwhile, at God and Max's house, the second experiment, knows the words hand and foot, but she uses the word foot to describe her hands. And God has some sort of cancer in his colon, though as we found out earlier, he doesn't make his own gastric juices, so I'm not sure how the cancer came about. I don't know. He has cancer in his colon and it's inoperable, so he tells Max to find Bella. Max goes and finds Duncan, who is in an insane asylum, and then tries to kiss Max, and apparently gets the word out of him at one point after almost fighting him and beating him at one point, and writes a letter to Bella, and Bella goes back to London. Now, at one point during Bella's stay at the whorehouse, a lady points out to Bella's stomach that she has a baby scar, at which point Bella says she doesn't have a baby. Now, when Bella gets back to London, she confronts God and asks if she has a baby. God explains that she is the baby, is the mother, and is neither, and they show Bella the page notes on the surgery, at which point Bella sees the second woman and walks away. Bella comes back, and all is forgiven, I guess. Bella then walks with Max, who was her fiance at one point, and they decide to become engaged again. As I said, I can't talk with shit tonight. They decide to become engaged again, even though Bella was at one point a whore, which royally pissed Duncan off. Wow, this video is long. And they go to get married. Now, God takes cocaine, heroin, and amphetamines so he can walk Bella down the aisle. At which point who she was before she had the brain surgery, Victoria something, her husband, Victoria's husband, General something, shows up at a wedding and says he wants Victoria back. Bella decides to go with him. Why they're introducing a new character in the last 15 minutes of the movie, I don't know. Technically, it's the last 25 minutes because the last 10 minutes of the movie is all credits, but whatever. I don't know, but they're introducing a new character. So Bella goes with him, and we find out that he delights in cruelty, same as Victoria did, and that Bella's pretty much going to be a prisoner of him. And he's getting a doctor to remove Bella's clitoris. Bella throws the gin and chloroform martini in his face, and he shoots himself in the foot, to which Bella gets his body back to Max, and they remove the bullet and put a goat's brain in his head, at which point we see the girl, the second experiment girl, throwing a ball finally, the general eating leaves as a goat, and Bella, finally a lady, with her lady friend from Paris, who she also went to anatomy classes with, and Max, because God died in a scene earlier, which I skipped, all having fun outside and drinking martinis. And that's how the movie ends. This movie was overly long. I skipped a lot of it. I mean, this video is at 22 minutes, and the movie is 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I think they could have probably cut a good half hour to 45 minutes of that. I mean, I don't get why everybody feels the need anymore to make movies that are epic. Producers and studio heads need to step in and tell people, hey, you need to cut this. We need movies anymore that are not epic. You need to cut this movie down for things that don't need to be in it. And if directors don't want to do that, then fire the fucking director. This movie had a lot of shit that needed to cut. Half of the sex scenes when Bella's a whore need to be cut. Because there are like 12 of them, and you could easily cut that down to 3 and get the same point. The whole second woman experiment thing could be cut. The general at the end could be cut. I mean, that all could be cut and the movie would still be fine and it would make perfect sense. So, if Poor Things is on Hulu, go watch Poor Things. Go don't watch Poor Things. I mean, it's a good movie. It won several Oscars. Emma Stone totally deserved the Oscar for her performance because it's a brilliant performance. Willem Dafoe's really good in it. Mark Ruffalo's really good in it. The guy who plays Max is really good in it. The general is completely over the fucking top in it. I mean, it's filled with good performances. It's a good movie. The costume design is really good. The set design is really good. The direction's okay. It's not great. But I mean, it's a really good movie, and it's really something you got to see. But it's overly long. It's like 2.5 hours, and it's maybe split into 2 viewings. But it's on Hulu. It's Poor Things. Next week we're doing the original Japanese Godzilla because Godzilla's 70 years old this year, and he finally won his first Oscar. So we're doing the original Godzilla next week because of Godzilla.